Acharya Astottara Sri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Nityalila Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Acharya Astottara Sri Srimad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gokopinath Shyam Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Navadip Dham Ki Jai. Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maharani Ki Jai. Shri Gaurni Thai Ki Jai. Shri Radha Sharat Bihari Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Jamuna Mai Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Samveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Hari Nam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Sankirtan Jagna Ki Jai. Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai. Go Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru Shri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo
Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Jai. So we're reading from the 10th canto, chapter 9, text 19. So I'll read through the verse, and then if anyone would like to try, they can do after that. Evam sandarshita hyanga harina britya vasyata swavasenapi krishnena yasyedam sheswaram vase. Anyone else?
Evam sandishdahyanga harina britya vashyata swavashena pi krishnena yasyedam sheshwaram vashe.
Evam sarshita hyanga harina bratya vashada swavasena pi krishnena yasyedam sevaram vase.
Evam.
Go ahead, Mummy.
Yeah, she's Renuka is doing.
There you go, Vidyavali. Vidyavali.
Evam samdarsita he anga haryana bhatya vasyata swavasenapi krishnena yasyedam seshavaram vase.
Evam sandarshita hyanga harina britya vashyata swavashenapi krishnena yasyedam seshavaram vashe.
Evam sandarshita hyanga harina britya vasyata swavasena pi krishnena yasyedam seswaram vase.
Evam sardashita hyanga harina bhartya vashyata swavashnenapi krishnena yashedam sheshvaram vashe.
Evam sandarshita hi anga harina britya vasyata swavasena api krishnena yasyedam seshwaram vase.
Evam sandarsita yanga harina britya vashyata savasena pi krishnena yasyedam seswaram vase.
Okay, I'll do the word for word. Evam, in this manner, Sandarshita was exhibited, he, indeed, Anga, or Maharaj Parikshit, Harina, by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Britya, Vashyata. This transcendental quality of becoming subordinate to his servitude or devotee. Swavashena, who is within the control only of his own self. Api, indeed, Krishnena, by Krishna, Yasya, of whom, Idam, the whole universe, Sa Ishwaram, with the powerful demigods like Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, Vashe, under the control. Translation, purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. O Maharaj Parikshit, this entire universe with its great exalted demigods like Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, and Lord Indra is under the control of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yet the Supreme Lord has one transcendental attribute. He comes under the control of his devotees. This was now exhibited by Krishna in this pastime. Purport. This pastime of Krishna's is very difficult to understand, but devotees can understand it. It is therefore said, Dara Shayams Tadvidam Loka Atmano Bhakta Vatshatam. Vashatam. Bhagavatam 10, 11, 9. The Lord displays the transcendental attribute of coming under the control of his devotees. As stated in the Brahmasamhita 535, Ekopyasho rachayitum jagaranda kotim yach chaktir asti jagaranda chaya yarantaha. Andantarasta paramanu chayantarastam govindamari purusham tamaham bhajami. By his one plenary portion as Param Atma, the Lord controls innumerable universes with all their demigods. Yet he agrees to be controlled by a devotee. In the Upanishads, it is said that the Supreme Personality of Godhead can run with more speed than the mind. But here we see that although Krishna wanted to avoid being arrested by his mother, he was finally defeated, and Mother Yashoda captured him. Lakshmi Sahasra Shata Sambrahma Sevyamahanam. Krishna is served by hundreds and thousands of goddesses of fortune. Nonetheless, he steals butter like one who is poverty-stricken. Yamaraj, the controller of all living entities, fears the order of Krishna, yet Krishna is afraid of his mother's stick. These contradictions cannot be understood by one who is not a devotee, but a devotee can understand how powerful is unalloyed devotional service to Krishna. It is so powerful that Krishna can be controlled by an unalloyed devotee. This Britya Vashata does not mean that he is under the control of the servant. Rather, he is under the control of the servant's pure love. In Bhagavad-Gita 1:21, it is said that Krishna became the chariot driver of Arjuna. Arjuna ordered him, Senayor Ubayor Madhye Ratam Stapaya Me Chutaha. My dear Krishna, you have agreed to be my charioteer and to execute my orders. Place my chariot between the two armies of soldiers. Krishna immediately executed this order. And therefore, one may argue that Krishna also is not independent, but this is one's ajnana, ignorance. Krishna is always fully independent. When he becomes subordinate to his devotees, this is a display of Ananda Chinmaya Rasa, the humor of transcendental qualities that increases his transcendental pleasure. Everyone worships Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore he sometimes desires to be controlled by someone else. Such a controller can be no one else but a pure devotee. Om Agyanatimirandasya Janan Janan Salakaya Chaksu Umilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakada Mahyam Dadate Swapadantikam Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Samyati Namine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Go Bhaktivinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Thank you all very much for being here so that we can open our minds and our hearts to try to hear something about Krishna. I was just listening to Srila Prabhupada's lecture this morning, and he was saying how Sutta Goswami thanked all the sages for asking him questions, because the sages of Naimisharanya, they posed these questions to Sutta Goswami. And he first of all thanked them for asking these questions, because he said these questions will bring about the change of heart, the joy of Krishna consciousness. And then Srila Prabhupada explained that given an opportunity to speak about Krishna is the greatest pleasure that we can imagine, to hear about his glories, because that is the purpose of human life, that we should try to hear the glories of Krishna. So let's try and do that this morning from this verse in purport. And the primary topic that I see in this verse and purport is the topic of unalloyed devotional service, which is mentioned here. So we'll try to explore that a little bit. What is that unalloyed devotional service? Just like the term alloy or unalloyed. So unalloyed means that there's no mixture. It's totally that element. So there's a nice example of this from Srila Prabhupada when he was visiting the Commonwealth Pier in Boston. So they were walking, and Prabhupada was interesting because they were in some type of bus or something like that. And Prabhupada started giving directions to the driver, which way to turn, left, right, here, there, because Prabhupada remembered how he had come to Boston when he first came to America. So he was giving directions where to go, and devotees were confused. How does Prabhupada know all this? So then they were walking, and this is what the exchange is. As they walked together under a steel bridge, Prabhupada pointed upward with his walking cane, quote, "Look," end quote. A sign under the bridge read, "Unalloyed steel." Quote, "They have unalloyed steel, and we have unalloyed devotional service." So Prabhupada was drawing that comparison. And that is the basic comparison. Like unalloyed steel means it is simply steel. It is the best construction. There's no alloys. There are no mixtures of aluminum or this thing or that thing. You can trust it. It is just that. So unalloyed devotional service means devotional service without any mixture of anything. So the verse that always comes to mind to me is from the Nectar Devotion, 1:1:11, which is also quoted in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila 19:167. Anya bilashita shunyam jnana karmadhyanarvitam anukulyena krishnanu shilanam bhaktir uttama. Translation: one should render transcendental loving service to the Supreme Lord Krishna favorably and without desire for material profit or gain through fruitive activities or philosophical speculation. That is called pure devotional service. So that is what's required in order to attract Krishna, and specifically with reference to this verse and the pastime that is being described. Of course, Mother Yashoda trying to bind Krishna, which that season is coming very soon. And so it's amazing how everyone is afraid of Krishna or worshiping Krishna, respecting Krishna, but Krishna is afraid of the stick of Mother Yashoda. So he's mentioning in the verse itself, O Maharaj Priksha, this entire universe with its great exalted demigods like Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, and Lord Indra, they're under the control of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, yet he puts himself under the control of his devotees. So Prabhupada clarifies, Srila Prabhupada clarifies in the purport, he's independent, but he surrenders himself to the devotee in love. It's just like any one of us, we would be hesitant to reveal our innermost secrets to a person that we don't know. And even if we know the person, if we don't have love or that exchange of love with that person, still will hesitate. And I've mentioned many times Rupa Goswami's saying in the Upadeshamrita that gugyam agyati prichati, revealing one's mind in confidence and listening confidentially. But there are other two elements, which is giving prasad, receiving prasad, giving gifts, receiving gifts. These are the qualities, the elements that help us build that love and trust amongst each other. So that the day that you need to consult or to reveal something that's troubling you, you go to the person that you have developed these relationships with. And they're very simple and very clear. Giving prasad, receiving prasad. How simple is that? But how critically essential that is to your loving relationships with devotees, so that you'll be able to one day open your heart to them. So once you have that trust, then you have a vehicle to clear your mind, to improve your devotional service, because devotional service progresses rapidly due to the association of devotees. First, Adal Shraddha, then Sadhu Sangha. We come to Krishna consciousness from 4 different platforms, but there's some faith to come to Krishna consciousness. There's some faith to start reading Srila Prabhupada's books. There's some great faith to start regularly chanting Hare Krishna. But then in order to increase that faith, association with devotees, Sadhu Sangha. So even one moment's association with an advanced devotee is worth more than you can imagine. So in order to get that type of relationship, Rupa Goswami is explaining to us in Upadeshamrita how to build those relationships so that we can open our hearts, we can trust each other. So in the same way or a similar way, how can Krishna trust us? That he would give himself to us as he did to Arjuna. And Srila Prabhupada quoted that verse, Ratas tampaya me chutaha. Take my chariot between these armies so I can see who has come here, desiring to please the evil-minded son of Dhritarashtra. So Krishna assumed that position as a charioteer, subservient to Arjuna. And he tells Arjuna later, because you're my devotee and you're my friend, I am revealing the mystery of this knowledge to you. So that characteristic of pure devotional service, and we don't have a lot of time to go through everything that's explained about it, especially if you have the opportunity, you should go and read Nectar Devotion, because there's an entire chapter, characteristics of pure devotional service. It's very detailed, how to understand pure devotional service. But that one verse that I just quoted, Anyabhilasa Sunyam, one should render transcendental service, loving service. Now let's accentuate that loving service. Tesam satata yuktanam, bhajitam priti purvakam, didami buddhi yogam tam, yena mamupiyantite. Tesam satata yuktanam, bhajitam priti, love, the sweetness of love, bhajitam priti purvakam. So when we're doing our service, if we want that deep reciprocation with Krishna, we want those revelations about Krishna consciousness, then we have to do our service with love. Then Krishna sees, he actually sees that we're serving him with love. Dadami buddhi yogam tam. Then he gives us the understanding, because we're all struggling, trying to understand our situation in this life. And life is throwing so many curves at us right now, especially with the problem with the virus and all these things. And we're losing devotees one after the other. I just got a message this morning about it. One of the first sannyasis in Russia, he just passed away from COVID. We heard in Philadelphia, one of our members there passed away from COVID. And then it's just so much anxiety. Every morning you wake up, there's some new anxiety. And in the political situation, thank God it'll be over soon, because it's just so much stress and anxiety. So that is the nature of this material world. And we can't get away from that. It's just part of it. Dukalayam ashasvatam. So this devotional service to Krishna, loving service to Krishna, we can get free from all of this negativity within this material world. But that bhajitam priti purvakam, serving Krishna with love, is so important. Whatever service we're allowed to do, if we're given the opportunity to serve, we should focus our mind. And then Srila Prabhupada explains about love. Beautiful simple concept. He said, if you love someone, you constantly want to speak about that person, be it a wife or a husband or a child or grandchild, or, you just want to share your feelings about that person. So that is a symptom of a devotee. Devotee is always constantly reminding others about Krishna, either by their words, by their actions. They're reminding others of Krishna. That is a symptom of the Vaishnava. So when Krishna sees all of that, when he sees that you're serving him with love, then he himself removes the causes of our stress and anxiety. That's actually the first symptom of pure devotional service. It immediately brings relief from material anxiety, material distress. There's an entire description of that in the Nectar Devotion. You should take time and read it, because our distress is coming from past sins in this life, so many things, seeds, things lying as seed, all these things are there. And they're disturbing us all the time. They disturb us in dreams. They disturb us in life. They disturb us in relationships. All these things are there. But the pure devotional service brings immediate relief from that. And then also in the Bhagavad-Gita, what is that verse? Mam chayo bhavicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunam samatitaitam brahmabhuyaya kalpate. That by this devotional service, one can rise above the modes of material nature. Because all of our suffering is due to our being situated in the modes of material nature. And we think ourselves to be the controllers of things that are happening, but Bhagavad-Gita says, no, prakriti kriyamanani gunaya karmani sarvasaha ahankar vimuratma kartahamiti manyate. That the bewildered spirit soul thinks himself to be the doer of activities that are carried out by nature. That's another cause of our suffering, because we think that we are the controller, but then we're faced with the circumstances that we can't control and we get frustrated. When we can't control something, we become frustrated. We think it should go this way, go that way, but that's being controlled by material nature. And material nature is under the control of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. All the demigods, all of their, like the 33 million demigods, they're all under the control of Krishna. And Krishna can, by his order, remove their influence on the life of a devotee, especially in the life of a pure devotee. Krishna personally guides, protects, controls the actions, even the actions of the pure devotee's body. Everything is controlled directly by Krishna. But to come to that platform, it's not easy. What did Prabhupada say in the very first part of the purport? This pastime of Krishna's is very difficult to understand, but devotees can understand it. So what is that difficulty? How is that God can come under the control of someone? And how can we even, we small little devotees, can we even imagine such a thing? That we could attract Krishna that much? I don't know. I don't have that confidence, but just that hope of coming to the stage of pure devotional service, that's enough. Whether we control Krishna or not control Krishna, that's kind of like above our pay grade. That's in the realm of Yashodamai, Radharani, and like that. Even the cowherd boys, they control Krishna sometimes. Krishna, you have to do this. Krishna, you have to do that. And then sometimes they have these games where Krishna loses and he has to carry one of the cowherd boys on his back. And all these things are going on. Who can understand this? From the spiritual, religious background that, at least that I have from a Christian perspective, there's nothing in Christianity that accommodates what we're talking about right now. Nothing. God has not even revealed fully who he really is, what he really looks like, what he really sounds like. Like Prabhupada says, we have Krishna's address, we know his family, we know his lovers, we know his likes, we know everything by the grace of the pure devotees, Srila Prabhupada, and the acharyas. The acharyas have packaged all this knowledge. They've taken it from so many places and given it to us in such a palatable way. And now we can claim to understand Krishna. The thing that we have to add to it, we don't have to become big scholars, big researchers, anything like that. The only thing we have to add, bhajitam priti purvaka. Whatever little service you have, add love. I was just reading that pastime, and I can't remember the whole pastime, of that Brahmana who burnt his finger. And I seem to remember it being that he stuck his finger in the sweet rice. But when I just read the pastime the other day, Srila Prabhupada described that he burnt his finger by touching the pot that the sweet rice was kept in. So he had heard from some sages and sadhus that one can worship the Lord in his mind, mana seva. I guess they're mana sodasena, so relishing in the mind. So he didn't have much. My point being that whether you have a lot, don't have a lot, is not the criteria. So this Brahmana did not have much. So he decided to begin the process of worship of the Lord in his mind. And Srila Prabhupada explains it was detailed worship. It's like we have Mangal Arati and different artis and bathing the deities and dressing the deities. It's very detailed. For those who have not been on the altar, I pray that you get that opportunity one day. It's such a meditation. But he didn't have all of that. So he decided to do it in his mind. So he's doing all this detailed worship, you know, putting on the garlands, the jewelry, the decorations, the this, everything. And then he wanted to make the sweet rice to offer to the Lord. So he made the sweet rice. And Prabhupada explains in that description, sweet rice is best when it is cold. Do you all agree? Raise your hands if you agree. Cold sweet rice, right? Well, let me tell you a quick story. When I first went to Vrindavan and we were staying at the Fogel Ashram, very famous ashram to stay in Vrindavan. You actually feel like a sadhu because there's not many facilities. So that day they had sweet rice, but they don't have refrigerators so much in Vrindavan. So the sweet rice was hot. And I was just remembering this past time, we were eating hot sweet rice in Vrindavan. So the Brahmin wanted to make sure, because the sweet rice should not be hot when you offer to the Lord. So he picked up the pot, and the pot was so hot that he burned his finger. And then he was shocked. He woke up that, how did this happen? He himself was shocked that his finger was burned. And then Krishna, the Lord in the spiritual world, was observing all this, because the Lord he's in everyone's heart. Sarvasya hridishani visto, matatsmatir ganopoanam cha, vedaishcha aham eva vedya, vedantakrit vedavid eva chaham. He's in everyone's heart. He knows everything. So he knew what this Brahmana was doing. And then the Lord was actually smiling. And then the goddess of fortune is thinking, what is going on? What are you smiling? So the Lord immediately brought that Brahmana to the spiritual world and gave him a place in the spiritual world in Vaikuntha, because he was so pleased with his devotional service. That's the power of pure devotional service, as Srila Prabhupada is explaining in the purport. That's the power of pure devotional service, that it can practically bring Krishna under our control. But as I said from the beginning, you're not going to put yourself under someone's control, someone's care, if you don't trust them. Obvious. There's so many things in this world that parallel. Why? Because it's all been instituted by Krishna. We haven't done anything. Problem for us, we think we're doing something. We're not. Remember the verse, Prakriti Kriyamanani Gunaikam, Ahankara Vimudatma. Ahankara, false ego, Vimuda. That means we're bewildered, like Prabhupada calls it, like an ass, like a donkey. We're bewildered by this material energy, and we keep forgetting. This little action, what I'm doing here, moving my hand, I'm not doing it. This is controlled ultimately by Krishna, by way of the demigods and modes of material nature. But I keep forgetting. I think I'm doing it. So in that forgetfulness, how can I think of Krishna? How can I come to the platform of serving Krishna with the love that's required to attract Krishna? Krishna's he's not attracted to ordinary devotional service on the way he's attracted to pure devotional service, because there's a factor of trust. It's not that Krishna discriminates. Just remember, there's a factor of trust. You only give your heart to someone you trust. And when your heart is broken, that's a big deal. When the trust has been broken, whether it's from your spouse, from a friend, from the government, anywhere, when that trust is broken, it's so difficult to get it back. In many cases, you can't get it back. But we've broken that trust with Krishna. That's why we're in the material world. But Krishna is so merciful. He's so kind that he's, through his chain of disciplic succession, he's given us the steps to get back, to win back his trust. It starts with Lord Brahma. Tene Brahma Hridaya Adikavaye. So Brahma, the first creature and first person in the universe, Krishna gives him the knowledge. Dene Brahma Hridaya, in the heart. And then Brahma gives to Narada Muni. And then Narada Muni gives to Vyasadeva. And then Vyasadeva, of course, to his son, Shukadev Goswami, Sutta Goswami. And then this whole chain of disciplic succession. And all of this Vedic knowledge is meant to bring us to Krishna. Jagya Vai Vishnu. Everything is meant to satisfy Krishna. People forget. We start doing yagyas and pujas in order to get something from Krishna. Remember, Anya Vilasatu Sunyam, Jnana Karma Dinavritam, Anukulyena Krishna Nu, Shilanam Bhakti Uttama. One should render transcendental loving service to the Supreme Lord Krishna favorably and without desire for material profit. Let's look at that one thing, material profit. I mean, probably we think sometimes that devotees don't do that. Devotees don't serve Krishna to get something. I beg to differ. I mean, from my own growing up in this movement for the last 47 plus years, but many times that I've served in order to get something. It could be something as simple as getting some nice prasadam at the end of your service. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, that you want nice prasad, you know, you do your service and, oh, nice little pastime. When I was in Chicago for my initiation, Srila Prabhupada, of course, was there. And they had a competition. Competition is good when the results are Krishna conscious. So the result of the competition was who could do the most service to prepare for the Rath Yatra feast. Wow. So I remember we were in a big room because the old Chicago temple was a YMCA? Yeah, YMCA. And I just read the other day that it was actually an African-American YMCA that devotees had bought. So it was a big, big building. So we were in this room, cutting vegetables, doing all this work. And the prize was, check this out, the prize was prasadam eaten personally by Srila Prabhupada. That was the prize. And guess who won? Me, because I had to get that prize. I worked really hard. And the prize, and what it was begun, or was it eggplant, that Prabhupada had personally tasted. And I can practically still taste that wonderful eggplant. So serving to receive some benefit, as long as the benefit enhances your Krishna consciousness, brings you closer to pure devotional service. That's my main point. Okay, when you're doing your service, you want to get that, you know, that service and that opportunity to do more service. There's a wonderful devotee here in Atlanta. His name is Param Pradas. And I remember watching him in the kitchen, washing pots. Too many W's, watch. But watching him in the kitchen, washing pots. You have to see it one day. He is so absorbed in every facet of that pot. And he's smiling and singing and just, it's a joy to see it. That's another aspect of devotional service. When you see someone performing genuine, sincere devotional service, it inspires you. It inspires you to want to follow that example. Mahajano yena katasa pantaha. As again, going back to sadhu sangha, that's another benefit of sadhu sangha. You may or may not be, you know, on such a level, but when you're around those who are working on being on that level or serving bhajitam priti purvakam, then you get the idea how to do it. So going forward, we should concentrate on the quality of our service. This is another nice verse I want to share, a couple of verses I want to share with you so you can have as references. And I keep it in notes. I don't try to remember everything because I don't have that great of memory. So don't worry about trying to remember. You know, the nice thing is you don't have to remember all these things, but you should have read enough that you know where to go to get the information. That's very valuable, that you can remember where these things might be, or you learn how to look them up to help enhance your devotional service. So this other verse, Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto also, 7th chapter, text 10, Sutta Uvacha, Atmaramas, Cha Munayo, Nigranta, Apyarukrame, Kurvant Yahait Tukim Bhaktim, Itam Bhuta Guno Hari. And this Ahait Tukim, we're going to come back to that in one other verse. Translation, Sutta Goswami said, all different varieties of Atmaramas, those who take pleasure in the Atma or spirit self, especially those established on the path of self-realization, though freed from all kinds of material bondage, desire to render unalloyed devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This means that the Lord possesses transcendental qualities and therefore can attract everyone, including liberated souls. And I just want to share a little bit from the purport. This explains unalloyed devotional service, so please listen carefully. Do I have everyone's attention? Raise your hands if I can see. Everyone's there? You awake? I know you're waiting for breakfast. I won't hold you up. But this will explain unalloyed devotional service in such a clear and concise fashion. Purport. Therefore, unalloyed devotion means service to the Lord without desire for the above mentioned personal benefits. And the powerful personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna, can be fully satisfied by such unalloyed devotees free from all sorts of desires for personal benefit. Unalloyed devotional service of the Lord progresses in 3 stages. Practice of devotional service in the material field is of 81 different qualities. And above such activities is the transcendental practice of devotional service, which is one and is called sadhana bhakti. When unalloyed practice of sadhana bhakti is matured into transcendental love for the Lord, the transcendental loving service of the Lord begins gradually developing into 9 progressive stages of loving service under the headings of attachment, love, affection, feelings, affinity, adherence, following, ecstasy, and intense feelings of separation. So you can see from that developing pure devotional service is a process. We can have faith that there's a process that we can follow, even if we have material desires. What is that? Can't think of the verse right now.
Akama sarvo kama moksha kama
There she is.
yogena.
Thank you so much, Benyo. Akama sarva kamova. Who knows? Akama sarvaka. Akama means the state of a devotee. Pure devotee, has no desire. Akama. Sarvakama means someone who has all desires, tons of desires. But Tivrena bhakti yogena, yajeti purusham param. Even if you have desires, still is better to worship Krishna. So we should not be discouraged that, oh, I have some desire, so I can't practice pure devotional service. No, that's the stage of practice. So you can get to the point of not having desires. So I just wanted to, before we finish, there's a verse in my mind that is like a conclusion to what we're discussing today. And hopefully we'll have some questions. As I said from the beginning, please bless me with questions so I can continue to speak about Krishna, because that's what Sutta Goswami said to the sages. Thank you for your questions, because these questions will give the joy, the happiness, the bliss that we're looking for to talk about Krishna more. And maybe I'll ask some of you some questions as well. But here's the verse I wanted to share, and we all know this verse, 18th chapter of Bhagavad-Gita, text 65. Man mana bhava mad bhakto majaji mam namaskuru. Mamevaishasi satyam te pratijane priyosi me. Translation, always think of me, become my devotee, worship me and offer your homage unto me. Thus you will come to me without fail. I promise you this because you are my very dear friend. Purport. The most confidential part of knowledge is that one should become a pure devotee of Krishna and always think of him and act for him. One should not become an official meditator. Life should be so molded. Now, here's the practical part of this purport. Life should be so molded that one will always have the chance to think of Krishna. One should always act in such a way that all his daily activities are in connection with Krishna. He should arrange his life in such a way that throughout the 24 hours, he cannot but think of Krishna. And the Lord's promise is that anyone who is in such pure Krishna consciousness will certainly return to the abode of Krishna, where he will be engaged in the association of Krishna face to face. This most confidential part of knowledge is spoken to Arjuna because he is the dear friend of Krishna. Everyone who follows the path of Arjuna can become a dear friend to Krishna and obtain the same perfection as Arjuna. So that is the point, that we want to become Krishna's friend. And as I said from the very beginning, your friend is someone that you've been reciprocating with, someone you've demonstrated that they can trust you. You have to ask yourself this question: can Krishna really trust me? Can the spiritual master really trust me? And equally as important, can the devotees really trust me? Devotees have to know that they can trust you. Otherwise, you'll get nice superficial relationships. You know, Haribo Prabhu, Haribo Mataji, how are you doing? Good to see you. Namaste, Dandavad Pranams, you know, boom, 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 on and on, little greetings that we do. I mean, isn't it amazing? Sometimes we go weeks and months not even having a deep conversation with a devotee. I make it a point regularly to have off the record deep conversations with devotees. Dronacharya and myself, we have many discussions a lot of times, and Haryasha and myself, Vishnu Gada, the list goes on and on. I have so many God brothers and God sisters that I can confide in because I know I can trust them. You know, I don't even have to say, Prabhu, this is off the record, because I know I can trust them after the years and years of association. So can Krishna trust us to entrust us with pure devotion? Because it's given by Krishna. It's not something you can take. It's not something you can academically achieve. Pure devotional service doesn't work like that. It's given by Krishna. It's the greatest gift, but it's given by Krishna. And by the mercy of the spiritual master, you know, his prayers to Krishna for your blessings can cause Krishna to give you that pure devotional service. Even without you being really qualified, if the spiritual master sees that you are genuinely sincere, he can bless you with that. He can connect you to Krishna and give you that pure devotional service. So can Krishna trust us? Can the devotees trust us? Sometimes can we even trust ourselves because our minds are so crazy. But if we stay in the process of sadhana bhakti, specifically chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, it was so nice when I came online today, all of you were chanting Hare Krishna. So this chanting Hare Krishna was given to us as a means in Kali Yuga, personally delivered by Lord Chaitanya, as the means to attain pure devotional service, pure love of God. Why don't we take the time, or we should take the time? I don't want to say why, because that sounds accusatory. We should take the time to just hear the Lord's holy names. Even if our minds are wondering, which mine does all the time, I tell my mind, I don't care. You can think whatever you want. Just, I don't care. I'm going to hear the holy name. And my mind is echoing this thought, echoing that thought. You need to do this today. You need to write this down. You need to do this. And I just said, I don't care. You can say whatever you want, mind. I'm going to hear Hare Krishna. And it's amazing. Like the mind just shuts up. The mind just like goes, and then it comes back again. So throughout your japa, the mind's coming back, and then you're focusing on the holy name, because that's how you get this divine, pure love of God. That's how Krishna knows he can trust you. He can entrust you, and he can empower you with the abilities, the things you need in order to advance in spiritual life, and also in order to do your service. So he's just waiting for you to turn to him. He's already there. He's just waiting. And like it says in Bhagavatam, Srimvata Swakata Krishna, Punya Shravana Kirtana, Ridyantasto Yubhadrani, Vidunoti Sarisatam. So when the Lord sees that you develop just the urge to hear his messages, he cleanses the heart of all those unwanted things. So anyway, remember that thought. Can Krishna trust us the way he trusts Arjuna to give himself, and the way he trusts Yashodamai to surrender himself to her? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Thank you. Anyone have a question or comment?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, I have a comment.
Haribo, Renuka.
I think Sudevi Mataji has a question.
Okay, Hare Krishna.
Actually, Prabhu, I have a comment.
Yes.
Yeah. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada quoted the verse, Senayor Ubaryor Madhye Ratham Stapa Mechuta. In this connection, I am remembering this story of the Brahmana who was illiterate and he did not know how to read.
Yes.
But then he was ordered by his spiritual master to read Bhagavad-Gita every day. So he would stand with a book, sometimes not even holding properly, and people will make fun of him. Oh, look at this Pandit, he's reading. But then sometimes he's crying. And then one day, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw him and asked him, so may I ask what you're reading? And he said, actually, I do not know how to read, but I have the order of my spiritual master, so I'm trying to. Then he said, but may I ask one more question? Well, why are you crying? He said, oh, when I see the picture of Krishna driving the chariot of Arjuna, that made me cry, because he has so much love for his devotees that he's agreed to such a menial service to please his devotee. So that made me cry. And Mahaprabhu said, you have understood the Bhagavad-Gita. So we are talking about the love of the devotees, and the love that Krishna is bound by the love, and Krishna is agreed to becomes a charioteer. So that's a very good example of how Krishna is almost like sold out to his devotees.
Wow. Thank you so much. That's so beautiful. That's such a beautiful pastime. It really is. Really nice.
I have a question.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Real quick, we have Gita, Mother Gita Dasi. She had written on the chat. I want to get to her first because she's actually the first one to write a question.
Sure.
Thank you, Dronacharya Prabhu. Thank you, Balabhadra Prabhu.
Haribol, Gita.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to hear you. So I have a question. You were talking about the verse from Nectar of Devotion, Anyabhilasita Shunyam. So in that, you talked about that our devotional service should be without jnana and karma. Can you please explain with an example how we can practice that, practically? That's theory, but practically.
Yeah, well, the foundation in my mind, especially about the jnana part, because the jnana karmata narvitam. So we, in our efforts to be Krishna conscious, to learn the philosophy, and sometimes, at least I know for a fact for me, sometimes we think that we've achieved a certain intellectual level in Krishna consciousness, but we forget that that's not the goal of Krishna consciousness. To accumulate a lot of knowledge, to accumulate a lot of verses, to accumulate a lot of stories, unrelated to the surrendering process. So then, and this happened before. A practical example is a disciple of Srila Prabhupada who was assisting Srila Prabhupada in editing the Sanskrit in the verses. And this also relates to Philadelphia, and I've told this story before, because in Philadelphia, when Prabhupada came, and I was fortunate to be there at the Old Temple, and Prabhupada was reading the 6th canto and reading the pastime of Ajamil. And at that time, the books were just coming out, just being published. So Prabhupada seeing his published, finished, edited 6th canto for the first time in Philadelphia. And he's reading it, that verse that day. The verse that talks about how Ajamil chanted the name of Narayan. Now, let me ask you all a question. How many times did Ajamil chant Narayan? Who knows?
One time.
Yes, but in Philly, when Prabhupada read the verse, it said 3 times. Narayan, Narayan, Narayan. And Prabhupada stopped. He said, what is this? He said, what is this? And he started giving a class about the fact that he only chanted 1 time. But the devotees who had been doing that editing work were trying to think ahead of Prabhupada. And one devotee in particular who was there with Prabhupada in Philadelphia, also when Prabhupada came to Atlanta, very famous devotee. So then he started thinking that he had developed an intellectual level, jnana, knowledge, superior to Srila Prabhupada. That Prabhupada, he's missing a couple things and he was trying to adjust. And Prabhupada, that person left ISKCON and Prabhupada called him a snake. He said, such and such devotee has now become a snake. Because by his accumulation of jnana, Gita, as you're pointing out, he thought that he was advancing in spiritual life due to jnana accumulation. It doesn't work that way. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't try to know and understand the philosophy, but you have to always remember that your ability to understand the philosophy is given to you by Krishna, right? That's not something you have done. It's by Krishna's grace, the Dhammi Buddhi Yoga. He gives the understanding, but we're thinking, I have the understanding. So we have to be careful of that. So that's one practical way that I look at that part. Jnana karma. And then, like I said, trying to, or doing devotional service to get certain material benefits. That has become a problem in our society, personally and collectively. We should not perform our devotional activities in order to get monetary results, even if it's for the sake of the temple. Our focus should be personal development of Krishna consciousness and helping others develop Krishna consciousness. All the monetary aspects, they follow that. Just like if I'm surrendering to Krishna and I'm consciously thinking I want to give Krishna and serve Krishna and support the temple, help the temple, we should never try to manipulate each other for those kinds of material benefits that make our lives, material lives, more comfortable or whatever, to remove stress from our personal lives. So don't try to achieve a level of knowledge in Krishna consciousness where you think yourself to be above devotees, or you think yourself to be independent of guru. It's happened. By having this knowledge, and maybe you speak in a really nice way. Maybe you have a grasp of Sanskrit and your Guru Maharaj doesn't. This has happened where those devotees like that think that they know more than their Guru. That's very dangerous. So those are just some thoughts that I have. Gita, you want to share any more on that?
No, thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Yes, we just have to be very careful because the Vedic culture is very alluring. Yoga, learning yoga, all those things are alluring. And when you achieve those kinds of things, you can, if you're not strong in the foundation of Krishna consciousness, those things can take you away. I have seen it. And I've also been a victim sometimes, moving in the wrong direction. But as I said before, I have enough good relationships with devotees that I can call them and they can straighten me out. In the old days, a lot of times people say, what was it like in the old days? In the old days, they would probably slap you, wake up, Prabhu. You shouldn't do this. You shouldn't do that. It's like I always tell the story that I thought I was going to be a great, austere devotee. And in Atlanta, it does get cold sometimes. But in our old temple, we had a wooden front porch. So I would go on the front porch in the dead of winter, barefoot, chant my japa, because I wanted to be like the sadhus of India. The temple president looked at me and said, "Pala Bhatter, you idiot, come back inside. What are you doing outside?" like that. So that was the advantage of being around devotees. The senior devotees could guide you. I mean, not that they call you idiot all the time, but they could guide you and you trusted them. You knew they loved you. Why? Because they made sure you got prasadam. They made sure you got different clothing. They gave you gifts. It was amazing. So you had trust. So make sure you have enough relationships with devotees that when your mind starts to wander, you start thinking all kinds of things, consult with devotees that can guide you. It's very important. Anyone else?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
I'm waiting for a long time.
Yes, go ahead.
My turn is now. Thank you.
Renuka.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for today's lecture. It's like, I hope I get to revisit this lecture probably on YouTube. Dronacharya Prabhuji, are you going to put this on YouTube as an archived lecture?
Yes, it is being recorded on YouTube now.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. I'm going to revisit because whatever you said today, every single word, every single sentence, like it literally, like it means a lot. It means a lot. Thank you so much. I thought I heard like atom, alloys, unalloyed, steel.
Yes, you did. That's
so you are a catalyst for any devotee to progress in the spiritual journey. Thank you so much. So you have Lord Krishna on one end and you have your devotee on the other end, but devotees need catalysts like you to to enhance this process of the spiritual journey, which is one day at a time, one canto, one verse at a time, one japa session at a time. Thank you so much.
No, I'm glad you said that one at a time. Like I had my uncle who passed away. He was 100 years old. So I went to his 100th birthday celebration. So the state of Georgia sent a representative to give him a plaque and all that, congratulations, you made it to 100. So the state representative asked my uncle, in fact, he has the same name as me, Benny Tillman. So he said, "Mr. Tillman, what is your secret?" And my uncle looked at him without even blinking. "You live one day at a time." I was like, oh, I love my uncle. And that's in Krishna consciousness. Because Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, "Let the past sleep, ne'er the future dream at all. Act with times that are with thee, and progress ye shall call." Bhaktivinoda Thakur said like that. Let the past sleep. You can't do anything about the past. It's done. Leave it alone. And don't dream too far in the future. Of course, you have to think about plans and all that. But act right now, today. And Prabhupada says that at this stage, whatever stage you're at right now, at 8:49 a.m. in the morning, become Krishna conscious. Think of Krishna right now. Let's all stop for 1 second. Like they say, a moment of silence. No moment of silence. Just 3 or 4 seconds. Let's all just think of Krishna, just the name Krishna. Everyone together, just meditate. Krishna. You can say it if you want, but just think of Krishna, the holy name. See it in your mind, K-R-S-N-A or K-R-I-S-H-N-A, Krishna. And maybe even think of Yashoda Mai chasing him with a stick. I mean, it's crazy. With a stick. She's so spiritually, transcendentally lost in her mind that she's chasing God with a stick. Wow. And we're going to be singing that bhajan very soon, right? Namami Sharan Sa Chirananda Rupam Lasakundalam Kukuli Brajamanam. All those beautiful descriptions there. Okay. Hare Krishna. Thank you for allowing me to think of Krishna. Anyone else, real quick?
Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Yes.
Please.
Is that Krishna Kirtan?
Yes.
Jai Bhukshama, humble obeisances, all glorious to you and all glorious to devotees in Delaware. Haribol.
and Philadelphia.
And Philly.
Thank you. One thing also, thank you for clarifying on the jnana karma, about both jnana and karma. My understanding also on that primarily it is, one is you said, yes, when the devotees are practicing sadhakas,
yes,
we have so many anarthas. We think, oh, now I know more. And that prevents us to render pure devotional service. And by the mercy of the devotees, as you see, Prabhupada corrected him, corrects devotees, so we can improve in the pure devotional service. On the other way, Rupa Goswami's this statement also, my understanding is stressing the cultivation of knowledge. Sometimes people may worship Krishna, but their understanding is how they want to get liberation by cultivation of knowledge. But their desire is not to render devotional service. The four kind of liberation, among five, the four kind of liberation, they're aspiring to merge into Krishna's body. So my understanding was that was also referring to jnanis who externally they may be worshipping Krishna, but within their mind, many times they worship Krishna, not all the time they worship Krishna, jnanis, but their primary goal is to cultivate the knowledge so that they can liberate from the material entanglement and merge into the Supreme. I think that's where the statement says, Bahunam Janmanam Anta Jnanavan Mam Prapadate.
Vasudeva Sarvam.
So I was thinking that this verse of Goswami stresses, one is karmis and one is jnanis, and the third one which you mentioned is the practicing devotees. And practicing devotees, both karmi and jnani can come to the devotional service. At the same time, a new bhakta also can come directly to the devotional service, but the new bhakta has to be trained and guided and cultivated by the devotees so that their impurities, anarthas, such kind of anarthas can be destroyed.
Yes.
One point I was asking is that, to be frank, because always the conclusion of the Shastra is that to attain love of God, pure devotional service, and which is very rare. And we are hearing that Krishna will give, and mind comes when Krishna will give. But at the same time, many places we hear, I was contemplating actually, unless a devotee has the pure devotional service, it comes from the devotee. So my point is, I know, we try our best to please Prabhupada and his followers. How that pure devotion is it right? First of all, is it right? It comes from the devotees first, the pure devotional service. I don't know. You can clarify on this for me. And second is, we are in our home, in our world, we are trying to do our service. How we will be eligible to enter into the pure devotional service? That's my question.
Yeah, so pure devotional service given by Krishna, but Yasha Prasada, Bhagavad Prasada, Yasha Prasada, Nagatika Topi. So by the mercy of the spiritual master, one gets Krishna. By the mercy of Krishna, one gets the spiritual master. So I guess the word is symbiotic. It's almost indistinguishable. How do you get this pure devotional service? Well, you really, unless Radharani is pleased with you, you may not get it. Probably won't get it because it's Radharani. It's under her control ultimately. So spiritual master, Radharani, attracting Krishna, you get pure devotional service. My point is that it's not something you can force to happen just by regular practice or by accumulating knowledge or by anything like that. That's why Prabhupada also said, we don't need so many things. The Goswamis were living under trees and just discussing about the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. That's all they were doing. They were not building big buildings. Something would come and they would, of course, would facilitate it, but they were just focused on hearing about Krishna. But it also says they never said they even saw Krishna. Hey Radhe Brajak Devi Ke Chalalite. They were looking everywhere. Where's Krishna? So they never claimed. So they, even though they were writing books, Nana Shastra Vacharanayaka Nipanu Saddama Samstaku, even though they were writing books like anything, they never saw themselves as intellectuals, as controllers of the philosophy. I guess what I'm really trying to get to is sometimes devotees get into a mood almost like, this is my philosophy. It's coming from me. It's not coming from you. No matter how nicely you can speak Krishna consciousness, it's not coming from you. It's coming from Krishna, from the heart. Dami Buddhi Yogam, he's giving all these things. So my main point is, don't forget that. We should never forget that whatever I have, and Bhagavad-Gita 15:15 says it, Sarva Shachaham Ridishani Visto Matasmatir Gyanam. Matasmatir Gyanam comes from Krishna. Memory, forgetfulness, everything comes from Krishna. So our business is to remember sequentially throughout the day that my ability to move my hand, my ability to eat and taste prasada, my ability to think and remember comes from Krishna. So in studying Srila Prabhupada's books, we should make sure when we are blessed with a realization, my temple president taught me, if you get a realization, write it down. Otherwise, you will forget it. He taught us that because those realizations are precious gems given to you by Krishna. So discussion that you and I just had, Krishna Kirtan, was so beautiful. I love the way you described that. We're sharing our knowledge back and forth. That's the business, reminding each other everything comes from Krishna. So yes, pure devotional service ultimately comes from Krishna by way of his representatives, as you pointed out, the spiritual master. But the spiritual master will never say, I can give you pure devotional service. He will say, I will give you the steps to achieve pure devotional service. So that's
very good.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you. That's what I was trying to contemplate. It's not like one day a miracle will happen.
It could. I mean, in the case of that Brahmana who burned his finger, it was one day and it was a miracle. But, but we should strive by practicing sincere. Every part of sadhana bhakti should be done with love. Bhajitam, God, that phrase should be worn around your neck. Bhajitam priti purvakam, serving with love. So whatever you do, just do it with love. And then love, the symptom of love is attention. You start paying attention to chanting your japa. You start paying attention to cooking the offering. You start paying attention to giving the class. Paying attention is a symptom of the love that we can practice.
Thank you. You gave an example, the devotees very happily doing service, cleaning the pots. In our Philadelphia itself, we have few devotees, and now one person is already on the call, Dhanachari Prabhu.
Yes.
He does his service very happily.
Yes.
I'm not exaggerating, but it's the fact. Thank you so much, Hari. Thank you.
Another one more point I just wanted to add here is, apart from your daily spiritual routine, daily spiritual discipline that you're supposed to follow, like the 16 rounds of chanting, reading a chapter from one of these spiritual books, and listening to the Bhagavatam classes, you can always free up yourself, or if you have a lot of free time, like in your day, apart from your family duties and after finishing your spiritual discipline, you can offer to render your time, as volunteer. There are several volunteer openings for the temple. So when you volunteer as much as you can, depending upon your convenience and whatever can happen. That is also a service to Lord, right? Answering to a volunteer call.
Absolutely. That's the perfect segue to conclude the call. That's a perfect message. Thank you. And my clock just said 9 a.m. So that was perfect. Thank you, Renuka. So Dronacharya Prabhu.
Very enlightening class. Thank you, Ballabhadra Prabhu. We always look forward to you coming and speaking.
Thank you.
This is recorded on YouTube, as mentioned earlier. So if anybody would like to listen to it, or you'd like to recommend it to a devotee friend of yours to listen to, please do so. It'll be located at the ISKCON Philadelphia page on YouTube. We'll continue tomorrow with our Srimad Bhagavatam class. I believe Krishna Kirtan Prabhu will be speaking. And if you'd like to join us in the morning, starting at 6:30, our group is gradually expanding, our japa circle, which is very encouraging. Devotees, I think, will find it very, very beneficial chanting together. So with that, we wish everybody a happy and Krishna conscious day.
Today is Thursday, Prabhu.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Tonight, we have our Srila Prabhupada book study. That will begin at 7 o'clock, 7 to 8 o'clock. Vishnu Gada Prabhu leads us in, we pick a book that was written by one of Srila Prabhupada's disciples about their accounts and experiences with his divine grace. It's a great way to connect, especially for devotees that didn't live during that time, that weren't able to witness Srila Prabhupada, what it was actually like from the accounts of disciples that were with him. So please tune in. And if you're interested in learning the Brahmasamhita Prayers, we were chanting one of them, and one of them was in the purport today. It's at 6:45. 6:45, you can learn Vishnu Gada Prabhu's teaching the devotees how to chant these prayers chanted by Lord Brahma in praise of Lord Krishna. Okay.
Haribo.
Again, Ballabhadra Prabhu, our gratitude to you.
Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Thank you, everyone. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Have a beautiful day.
Collectively here.